Okay, so we'll begin holding Hilchos Taaruvot, Kuf Yud. We're going over the various klalim of Sfeka as enumerated by the Shach. As I mentioned last week, he has a lengthy version and a shorter version, a summary of the klalim. They're not really klalim, perhaps we better call them seif, various seif, where he discusses examples, and he introduces some names or concepts of when Sfeka is said. After all, Sfeka, we've explained, does ease the chances somewhat that this particular case, particular situation that we're in doubt about, is mutter. Statistically, the more Sfekas you have, the more likely it is that there's no Isser, or that the Isser is so kolush, is so small, that it is rendered mutter. And we've explained the various theories of how Sfeka works, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about that later again. As sometimes there's a difference in how to explain why something will be mutter or also depending on how you interpret, how you understand Sfeka. How does Sfeka work? So we went through already 10 categories or examples, various situations of Sfeka, what constitutes a Sfeka, what does not constitute. And now we're holding by some very important examples. Not that the rest are not important, but there were some klalim that the Shach brought down that are mere examples of a particular cause. In other words, so even though he has them separately, they're merely examples of a concept that he's been talking about. So they're not necessarily each one of them is a separate din. Now we're going into separate dinim of Sfeka. One of them is this Klal Yud Aleph, Sfeka mishem echad, is not considered Sfeka. And that is something that is pretty much agreed upon with a few exceptions, that if it's only mishem echad, we have two, but the two belong to the same thing. They are mishem echad, meaning from one name. So in reality, we don't have a situation where we can determine that because of the multitude of Sfekas, legabe the potential Isser, therefore we should be matir. Here it's not necessarily multitude of Sfekas, because if you look at the Sfekas, it's Shem Echod, meaning that it's all related to the exact same thing we are trying to determine. And if the two Sfekas are very, very, very much related, then it's really not two independent Sfekas. Now, you have to be careful when we use the word independent, because to have independent Sfekas, they still have to be related. We're going to talk about that later too. But we're trying to strengthen our case. And to strengthen our case, we have to have more than one reason to say why this is mutter. So when we don't have that kind of weight, because the two Sfekas pretty much relate to the exact same question or suffix, then you don't have two, you have one. What's an example? Where is this taken from? Well, basically, this is all in Toises, it's all in Ksuvas. We spoke about the example briefly of a husband claiming that his wife is not a besula. Pesach Pasuach, he says, I found that the door is open. Right? You understand what I mean by that? In other words, she's not a besula, she's not a virgin. And you can't really say that by katana. The Gemara over there has various possibilities, in other words, to tell us why yes and why not this claim would be acceptable. After all, you have, in a sense, a Sfeka. What's the Sfeka of not to believe him? The Sfeka was that we want to know, of course, if it was by him, or if it was not, was what he was engaged to her, right? And even if it was, it could have been be'oines or beratzon. That's how we explained. In other words, even though, as you know, the halacha is if a woman, a married woman, is involved in an intimate affair with another individual, she's married, so she's asura lebala. She cannot be with her husband anymore. If agreed to it, in other words, she went along with it, as opposed to if she was raped, if it was be'oines. The only exception to that is by a kohen. A kohen is a very, very unfortunate situation, and it has happened. There have been cases where a woman married to a kohen was raped, and she had to divorce her who they've been together for many years, happily married. So by Kohen, the halacha is, even by oines, we're not mechalek, even by force. It was her accident. It was an accident forced upon her. She has no choice. But by Yisrael, it would make a difference. And there are various, of course, complicated situations of what to do if you suspect somebody's going. Do you have to tell the husband? On the one hand, he's not allowed to be. On the other hand, if he does not know, he doesn't know. And do you trust just one witness? Or what if she admits? What if it's not true, even though because she just wants to get a divorce?
That's what the Gemara says.
Right. Yes.
She's not.
Right, exactly.
Marriage.
Yeah, she's trying to get out. Yeah, maybe. So here, yes.
Does the loss of virginity?
Sure. There's various forms. There are accidental forms of loss. Riding a horse. Yeah. Mukaseit. Yeah. There are others, yeah. But here the Gemara basically just characterizes the situation as such that why should we believe him? I mean, in the end, there may be here a Sfeka. And a Sfeka would say basically that it wouldn't make a difference. Even if it's true, it could be it was be'oines. So what difference would it make, right?
It's going on whether to be with him, not whether he desires to remain with her.
It also has to do with the ksuva, remember.
If he does divorce.
Sure. We're talking about mamanas too. We're talking about financial obligations here. Yeah. So by a ketana, however, by a little girl, things would be very different. The rabbis point out that under the age of 3, somehow, even if the besulim are gone, somehow, they can come back. In other words, the virginity somehow can restore itself. What's interesting about this, I've never thought about it this way. I mean, the Chacham just simply said, it could restore itself if she was young. There are organs in the human body that reach, you know that? Sun.
7 years?
Sure. Actually, people who have had burns, they take skin from other parts of their body, their own body, to graft it. Liver is an excellent example of an organ that you can cut away, they get cancers and so forth. Even liver, just leave a little bit, and it will regenerate. You don't have to do a whole liver transplant. But that's not true with other organs. They don't regenerate.
Hair.
Hair.
Is gone.
Hair?
Gone is gone.
Why? If you cut it, it comes back.
No, a lot of people have.
A lot of people have lost it.
Yeah.
If you lose it, that's something. It's a different problem. But
gone is gone.
yeah, but the hairs, nails. So what's interesting is that here, apparently, we don't understand how it works. It's not like we see this every day or we hear about it. But with a young girl, it could be that it's the same idea, coming back or being restored, meaning that the growth there is able to. The child is still developing, and some parts at a certain stage are still in the process of growth. It could be that she will get back her virginity or something close to it. So the Gemara there discusses that in such a situation, you wouldn't have really this Sfeka. As it says over there, in other words, even if you would say that it was berotzoin, it was willingly, it was not an oines, right? When she was young, pituye ktana oinesu, the pitui, the seduction of a young girl is like an oines. Because in the end, it would come back.
Because of that? Or because she doesn't know the
No, either way, the way you look at it is that it wouldn't make that much of a difference, right? So, Safek berotzen, Safek kshiktano, and p'tuyiktano is a oines. But all of this, as the Shach points out, is all one Safek. All we have is the Safek legabe, is it oines or not? So, however you look at it, it doesn't really. You don't really have two Sfekas over here, right? Safek be'oines or berotzen. And even if you say berotzen, when she was if it happened when she was younger, p'tuyiktano is considered oinesu. It's like oines anyway. So you're coming back to the same Safek of if it's others or berotzen.
In other words, with respect, your action is oin. Now, how the oin came about, you have different reasons how the oin came about.
Exactly.
But ultimately, it's an oin. It's an
oin.
It's one suffix, no matter how it came about.
So you don't have, in the end, basically that's the Meforshim explained here, the Chronim, you don't have two tzdadim to be matir this. Two separate tzdadim to be matir. It's just like you said. two different types or two different ways of oinus.
Of arriving at an
Of
oinus.
arriving
What is
at an
mattering
oinus.
is the one oinus, no matter how you arrive at it.
Yeah.
Was the oinus because of this? Was it because of that? It's one oinus.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, that's pretty much Klal Yud Aleph. And I'm going to come back to it a little bit later. Miklal, yeah, Safek Sfek Sfeko Mishem Echod is not a Safek. So let's just remember that for now. We're going to come back to it a little bit later, what the exceptions are. But if it's Mishem, if it's a real Mishem Echod, it's only one. You don't have enough Tzdadim to be Matir. You only have one Safek. Okay. Klal Yud Beis, which is related to this, it takes it one step further. If the first suffix is matir more than the second, you can allow a sfek sfeka m'shem echod. The first, you can. There are a few examples, and you will say, well, it's m'shem echod. Yeah, but the Shach says there are times that you will find that the reason why you allow that kind of sfek sfeka is because the first suffix is matir much more than the second suffix. It's a stronger suffix. And whenever the first suffix is matir more than the second one, you allow it. Now, what's the example that he uses? Interesting example in Sim Kuf Chof Beis by Kalim. We have a klal that we've talked about and you've learned in Basar B'cholov, that Stam Kalim Einam B'nei Yoiman. Remember that one? Stam Kalim. Oh, when was the last time I used this Kalim? I just made a mistake and I used it for Melicha. It's really flashiks. Okay? So that klal helps us in that example too, as well as the kelim of goyim too. Stam kelim, einam bnei yoim. They have not been used within the past 24 hours. You can make that assumption, and it's a very helpful assumption in various halachas. Okay.
We had the yom literally 24 hours, or was that?
Yeah, that was right. That was a separate question. There are questions of how it works, but one thing
that would be again. Hard, so it wouldn't matter how we count the different spaces.
No, that's a good question. Because I think what you're leading to is something else. There is a question which we'll talk about maybe Thursday, which I saw, that I don't think the Shach mentions. Would this be a Sfek Sfeka? I have a suffix in the Metzias. Is this what happened? And even if you say it did, there's a machlokes of Poskim Rishonim as to what the halacha is legabe that. See? So I think you were basically saying something close to that because you say there's chilukim, right? Different opinions. So apparently, yes, it may be considered the Sfek Sfeka. Yeah, there's a klal in Mamonis you may have come across once when you were learning maybe Gemara or Halacha of something called Kimli. Have you ever heard of that term, Kimli? Kimli is I hold like this rabbi. I hold like this posek. Called Kimli. So anyway, here in a situation where you can make of it can you make of it a success? Apparently you may be able to. There's a suffix in the midst. Plus a second suffix of what do we hold like? As long as you really, really have a real machlokes. All right, maybe we'll talk about it later. So here, in the Stam Kelim Einam B'nei Yoima, what difference does it make to me? It will make a difference. If it's not Einam B'nei Yoima, then we know that it's Pogum. The tam in the keli is pogum, and if the tam is pogum, then I don't have a problem with the food that was cooked in it. I still have a problem with the keli. The keli I have to undo. I have to fix the problem. Hagala, libun, whatever it is. But at least the food is okay, right? Whether it's basar b'chalav, it all depends, of course, on what it is. But in the end, it makes no difference, that much difference, because it's pogum, and that's what I'm concerned about. If it's ben yomer or not ben yomer, can make a difference. So, what's the question by Eino ben yomer? In other words, what does this have to do with what we're talking about? So, I think Tosfos explains the reason why we allow kelim Eino that are not ben yomer to not affect the tafshil. In other words, the klal of stam kelim ben yomer. Therefore, this tafshil is not affected. The reason for that is because of sfek sfeka.
So the underlying.
What's the sfek sfeka behind it? Safek, whether it was used a couple days ago or recent, within 24 hours. And even if you did use it, even if it was used within 24 hours, maybe it was used with something that is poigim the tafshil. Whatever you cook. I thought that was very interesting. I wasn't sure why he uses something like that, because, how often would it be what you cook is poigim this particular tafshil. All right, but that's what he says.
Maybe the poison a bad experience. It's not food that had been prepared. Is that a real possibility?
So I had a little bit of difficulty understanding where that came from. But recently. Right. In other words, even if you say it was cooked recently,
within 24
hours, maybe that which was cooked recently would be poigim this tafshil.
It was something that was very bad tasting.
Bad tasting.
No.
And therefore, it wouldn't be a problem with the tafshil.
Oil or a spice or something cooked in before they start with that.
Whatever, yeah. So that's really a suffix of Mishay Mechod. In the end, we're basically saying, it's pogum, either way you look at it.
Right.
Okay?
Mm-hmm. But the more than 24 hours will be stronger.
Right.
Is that what he's saying?
Right, that's what he's saying. The suffix rishon is, the reason why the suffix rishon is stronger than the second is because this suffix rishon of maybe you cooked in it 48 hours ago, that svara of pogum means that anything that you will eventually cook in this pot will become pogum, will be pogum. In other words, that time will be pogum any tafshil.
Even though we do have an exception to the course.
Yeah, you're right. That's right.
Doesn't take away the
right,
suffix.
Generally. As opposed to the second suffix, maybe you cooked in it something that was pogum this tafshil. Okay, this tafshil, yes, but maybe not the tafshil I'll cook tomorrow. The pgima of more than 24 hours is a stronger pgima. Therefore, that suffix is a stronger suffix than the second suffix. Interesting, I'm just quoting to you. I wasn't 100% clear on this myself.
Because maybe what he's saying is the second suffix is dependent on whereas the first suffix, with exception of big exception, regardless of the context in which it's being.
Yeah, you say that.
So there's an uncertainty the second time actually applies. It would depend on what I'm cooking right now.
Yeah.
It could be something that tastes even better because of it's being given.
Anyway, there are other examples, and we may, where this first suffix is stronger. So therefore, he makes a point to tell us as a cloud, Yud Sif Yud Beis, that if you do find that the two Sfekas are Mishem Echot, it's possible. It may be possible, but that's only because the first suffix is a lot stronger. It's a stronger suffix than the second suffix. So if it's a stronger suffix, then you're giving this more weight by introducing a suffix which is lesser.
Well, I don't understand.
In other words, I don't understand how that makes it. How the whole case is stronger because of that.
Right. No. I guess you have to
All he's saying is it's not Mishem Echot. You see, in other words, he's not telling us that this Sfeka is strong, powerful, because of this first suffix being stronger. No. All he's saying is, you know what? Remember we said Shem Echad is no good? This is not a true Shem Echad. When one is stronger than the second, they're a little bit different. That's all he's saying. That's why I figured, okay, I somewhat understand it, even though I'm not clear, why this should work. Because it's Mishem Echad. But you know what? When I share with you later who are the ones that disagree with the Shach about Shem Echad, you will understand, okay, we have some that disagree anyway, so here he's giving us a little bit of flexibility.
Kimberly.
Yeah, whatever. He's giving us a little bit of flexibility that if the Sfekas are different, in what way? We're here in Klal Yud Beis, they're different. One is stronger, the first one is stronger. And by the way, there's another one, I forget who it is, Mikvaot Yaakov, that says if the second one is stronger, the first one is the same thing. Something like that. In other words, the two are different.
Because their contribution, what's the suffix, is a different contribution. One contributes more weight to the suffix.
The way I saw it is that they're not Shem Echad completely, entirely.
So they're the weight of their contribution.
Yeah, all right. That's Klal Yud Beis. Before we go into another Klal, I found something fascinating. In the Piskei Maharai is Yisrael, Iserland. The Trumas Hadeshen. That's how he's more known as. Yeah. Anyway, he receives the following question from someone who, in the question that he poses to him, wants to argue that it's a Sfeka Mishem Echad, therefore not to allow it. What's the question? What was the problem? You have two male animals that were born to a cow, two calves, goats, whatever it was, to sheep. And you have a question whether they have a din of b'choyer. Bechor makes a difference, right? Bechor behema. What's the question? We don't know which one was born first between the two of them. And we don't know for sure if the mother already gave birth from before. You know where you have a relevant question sometimes here in Los Angeles, in Chutz La'aretz? You buy a tree at a nursery, or you're all happy, pomegranate, peaches, whatever, and you stick it in the ground, and fruit. Hey, wait a minute, is this orla or not? The first 3 years you can't have the fruit, whether it's in Eretz Yisrael or in Chutz La'aretz. There's only one difference. Then in Chutz La'aretz, Safek orla. You buy fruit from the Fairfax fruit, Safek orla is mutar. But here, you may be able to determine, by the way, how old the tree is. If you don't know him, you can ask somebody. You can, but how big it is, and so forth, right? So this is a normal suffix. Nevertheless, it's a problem. In Eretz Yisrael, it would be more of a problem than here. It's a suffix. So we don't have the suffix of Chor here so much to deal with, but we do have sometimes situations like this: suffix with Orla, suffix with Chodosh that we discussed before. Remember, there's Sfeka Derama by Chodosh. Yeah, can eat the challah, can eat the bread. So suffix Chor we don't have so much here. So what's the question here? The question is, maybe the mother already had calves before. So neither of these is a bchor. And even if you say that this is the first time, which one of the two is a bchor? On each one, like I said, this is not the one. So therefore, Sfeka, so the one who's asking this question as to this problem that occurred, says, but perhaps we were not going to say Sfeka over here, Mishem Echod. No, he was saying maybe this is a Sfeka Mishem Echod, I should say. And therefore not allow it. Why is it a Sfeka Mishem Echod? Because basically we're saying, is it a Bechor or not? Yeah, exactly. So he says, you see, Sfeka, but maybe we're not going to allow the Sfeka because it's a Sfeka Mishem Echod. You understand the question, right? You understood the example, you understood the problem, and you see why this is a Sfeka perhaps Mishem Echod? So anyway, that's the one who poses the question. It's a very good question and a good svara perhaps to say that it's a Sfeka b'shem echad. Therefore, do what? Not allow it. Don't say they're mutter. I have a Sfeka, they're not a bechor. That's what he's trying to say. But because it's b'shem echad, maybe you can't say it, and then you have a problem. It's a suffix, a regular suffix.
But it's figure. I thought guf echad. One suffix goes on whether the mother is qualified to give a bechor.
Yeah, but our question is on the calf. Our ultimate question is the calf.
But on this calf, that we would be saying on this calf would have to do with the mother, not with.
You're right. I'm going to get to that in a minute. you're picking up something. Yeah. Okay. So what did the Maharai say? He says no. It would not be a problem here of Sfeka Mishem Echad. Why wouldn't it be a problem with Sfeka B'Shem Echad? Because he says the first suffix is matir more than the second.
Both.
And therefore it's different. The first suffix basically says they're both mutar. She already gave birth before. Right? As opposed to the second suffix of one. No, but you understand that. Yeah. He says, what you say that this should be a Sfeka B'Shem Echad, therefore not a good Sfeka is not right.
It's an enhancement of this.
Here, this is not a real Mishem Echod. Why? Because the first suffix is matir more than the second suffix. The first suffix, whether this cow gave birth or not, would be matir both, the two of them. Whereas the second suffix, you basically have just one question of this or the other one. But one for sure is a bchor.
Right, of course.
Right? Okay.
I have a different question, however. In the first bechor, or the calf,
right,
was given birth. Exactly simultaneously, one had to see the other.
Yeah, but we don't know.
But before we don't know. But whichever one it was, it already came out.
Yes.
And the moment it came out, we only have one suffix.
Okay.
Maybe did the mother really have a bechor or not?
Right.
Until the second one came out, this one has one suffix.
Right.
So this one is a vadai iser. So now when the other one comes out as well...
Your remark here is similar to what you were saying before, just it's a different way.
I thought that...
But you will see that they really are. In other words, they come down to the same problem.
But ultimately,
but you're right.
Something that is a vadai iser,
You're right.
I just don't know which of the two it is. So I don't have a Sfeka.
You forgot one little detail. Maybe according to the Ramah, that would be an additional extra point. But according to the Mechaber, we have the famous Niddah. That Niddah later on came out at the same time. And the Taz has a whole write-up on this. If the two Sfekas happen at the exact same time, why should there ever be a problem? So it appears to be.
It was not the exact same time. That's why I said.
No, we don't know. You're talking about the Metzias. The Metzias, one of course was born
but
first.
Wasn't that exactly what the Ramah was arguing?
Yeah.
That one
in a
had
sense.
become a full Mitzvah
But
before
you're going to see, based on what he concludes, the Maharim, that all of this will not make that much of a difference.
Okay.
You'll see why, because of what you're saying. But
maybe Lamaisa.
But he calls it something else.
To understand the whole.
But it's good that you brought it out, because obviously that's where it's headed in a sense. But in the meantime, if we analyze this as a Sfeka b'shem echad, the Mari says this is not a problem here, because the first suffix is being marked here more than the second suffix. So this is similar to what we were seeing before in the Shach, right? Or actually based on what Toysa says about the Kedim, Stam Kedim, Einam B'nei Yoiman, the Sfekas are different. This suffix is mati, the first suffix is mati more than the second suffix. He goes on to say something very nice, interesting. Even if there were not two Zechorim, one was a Zachor and one was an Akeva, the Akeva is not a Bchor, right? And if she was the first one, there's no Bchor. So here you even have less of a problem in a sense, right? And you would. It's not for sure that the one of them is a bchor, right?
We know for two reasons.
In the case when there are two boys, two males, one for sure is a bchor. So you have the first suffix is stronger than the second suffix. So he goes on to say, even if you have a case of a zachar and a keva being born, where it's for sure, it's not necessarily for sure that one of them is a bchor. Still, it would not be a problem. It would still not be a problem. Sfeka mishem echad.
But now that you mentioned the female, previously, that introduces, and that is. So now we're saying maybe the mother gave birth before the male calf or whatever. Yes.
Right.
Now we have now two reasons to assume that she did. Either because the male calf was the first one of the two that came out, but he previously gave birth.
Okay.
Or the male calf was the second one that came out, and she first gave birth to the female one.
Right.
So the second explanation is the exact identical one to the first one, except for the first time we don't know that for sure that came out the first one.
Right.
And the second one we don't know the sequence of the two.
Yes.
But why would we be mutter the male calf here?
No, but you understand why it would be shem echad, right?
Why would we? I'm saying it's the same Sfeka. When you say maybe the mother already gave a birth before,
right?
What do I care if the birth that she gave before was the female daughter or was something that she gave birth even before the two of them were born?
Right.
It's the same one and the same suffix.
Exactly.
Maybe she may have given birth before.
Exactly.
The exact same suffix.
That's why it's a shem echad. In a sense, it's a suffix.
But I don't have two Sfekas here. I'm saying when the male calf was born, maybe the mother had already previously given birth.
Right.
So in one case, I'm saying given birth to some anonymous calf,
and even if it didn't,
or given birth to this female calf.
Right.
In either case, my argument is exactly one. I mean, the mother already gave birth before she gave birth to the male one.
Exactly.
So I don't know who that other one was. Was it this female one, or maybe an anonymous?
And therefore,
one?
what are you trying to say?
So it's one suffix.
It should be one suffix. That's what they're saying. That's possibly this should also be mishem echad.
It's not only mishem echad; it's one single suffix. There are no two Sfekas of shem echad. There's one single suffix of shem echad.
Yeah, but on the zachar I have two Sfekas. I mean, on the zachar itself.
If I have a female and a zachar, what is my Sfeka on the zachar?
Right.
Maybe there was a birth that preceded of this calf.
Right.
And I'm not sure.
And even if there wasn't.
No.
Right.
No. There was. That's my only suffix. Is maybe there was.
Yeah.
Either it was one anonymous calf that was born before this male calf, or it was the female calf that I'm looking at that was born before this calf. But my suffix is. Was there one that preceded it?
Yes, so that's what I'm saying. That's
always two Sfekas.
No. So that's an example. That's an example, possible example of Sfeka mishem echad. In other words, it's like one suffix.
But you're saying two Sfekas.
Yeah, because there are two.
Why there are two?
Well, there are two.
My suffix is.
We're calling
this is the first.
It's all one. It's all the same thing. You're right. It's all one suffix.
Yeah, it's not two Sfekas.
But as they explained, that the Sfekas are in two separate metzias, two separate situations. One pertaining to the cow, one pertaining to here. They're not exactly happening at the same time with the same thing.
Right. What I don't know right now is who was the scoundrel that caused this calf already have given birth?
Right.
Is it some anonymous calf or the female one?
Right.
But what does it matter who caused it? My suffix is, did the male calf come out into the world before any other animal did? And with respect to that, what does it matter whether that other animal is the female one or some anonymous calf?
But in the end, we are still concerned over here of the possibility that this Zohar, right, can be a Bechor. Okay?
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. So this suffix, perhaps, if he's a Bechor or not, can be alleviated if we introduce an additional suffix that occurred at a different time altogether. Okay? That basically says, but wait a minute, even if you say he was born first, okay?
First,
you see, I'll tell you, you see, what you did is very good for a different reason. I'll tell you why. What you are basically saying is going to introduce another klal.
Oh.
And I'll cheat now. I'm going to cheat a little bit by telling you this, because apparently otherwise you're going to be stuck with this. One of the klalim that we're going to be learning in the next few minutes, which is a very important klalim, Sfeka, is something called Sfeka hamitapech. You have to be able to equally evaluate the Sfekas beginning with one or beginning with the other one. Sometimes you can't do that. See, the way you were trying to say what you were saying is, well, if I look at it this way, I don't have Sfekas.
I only have one suffix.
I have one suffix. So yes, you are right in some ways. Okay, but
doesn't apply here.
It doesn't apply here. Apparently, but the Mahari doesn't consider it that way. Apparently, I mean, I didn't look into Tshuva directly. Apparently, he's saying, even though it makes more sense when the two are Zechorim, he wants to say that not only with two Zechorim, even with the Zachar and the Keva, I would not have the problem of Shem Echad. Why? Apparently, the two are very different. In other words, the two pertain to different things. In the first
perspective, I can understand very well he says that, because really, in his perspective, it doesn't matter whether the first one was a male calf or was it a female.
Right.
From his perspective, the only thing is, what do I care whether the supposed first calf, which wasn't the one that I'm trying to mutter right now, was the other male or female, whichever was born, or an anonymous third calf.
All right.
So from my perspective, it doesn't matter whether the first one was a female or a male, as long as the male that I'm trying to mutter right now was not that first. And why wasn't it that first one? Well, either because an anonymous calf was already born before he came out, or because the one that's in front of me was born before he came out.
But anyway, you'll see that in the end it won't matter, all of this, for something very, very simple that he's going to add at the end. But at this time, he just wants to rule out that this is not a problem of Sfeka Mishem Echad, because it would be allowed al Sfeka, either because the first suffix is more matter than the second one, and even in the second case of a Zachar and a Keva, male and female, where you don't have that one is more matter than the other one, apparently they're different enough to consider them separate Sfekas.
That's what he wants to do.
Different enough, But listen to this. Mikvaot explains, by the way, that the reason why with the Zachar and the Keva, the Metzias is different. The Metzias of the mother cow, the Metzias too. Okay, of the mixture of the two. Now, as he says that even if she gave, basically, if she had already given birth, the Mikvaot says it means that none of these two were poiter de rechem.
Right.
Yeah, that's all.
Incidentally, this suffix we should always have. This suffix we should have by each bechor.
Anyway, what's the conclusion here? Legabe this shara that he was asked, he says, it's no good. It's asa. Why? Because he says this is a cool example of suffix beguf, the suffix betaaruvot.
No, I was going to say.
Remember that? I don't know if you were here. Yeah, maybe you were in the very beginning. Suffix beguf. We had a suffix beguf, and then we have a taruvis. And this taruvis, even Rabbeinu Tam would agree that it's asa because it's chad lechad. It's a 50-50. It says, it was a nice academic exercise, what we just did. Whether this is a suffix Sfeka
so
Mishem
he's looking
Echad.
at it completely different.
Yes.
He's not.
This example that he was asked would not qualify as a Sfek Sfeka, whether you want to call it Mishem Echad or not, because it's a suffix beguf and suffix betaruva.
Now I'm surprised. On one hand,
this is
I'm
basically
surprised.
what you were saying.
Why?
Yeah.
Because you don't have a suffix betaruvos in front of the.
No. I'm talking about the first example.
I'm just saying, since he
I'm
said
sorry.
that
In a case of Zohar and Zohar.
because if he said that
That was a Shaila. The Shaila was the two Schorim.
No.
Okay? The Shaila was the two Schorim. Okay? On that he answered, he was not matir. You're right. On that he's not matir because it's a suffix beguf and suffix betaruvas. Only on that, on the particular Shaila that he was at. Yeah,
But
so
on
thank
the
you
suffix-
for, yeah.
But on the suffix betaruvas, you don't even have a suffix. Since it's chad b'chad, not because you know which animal it is, but because chad b'chad is forbidden anyway, so you
Right.
don't even have a suffix there. So you don't even have
No,
a
but it
suffix.
is a suffix. It's just, it's chad b'chad.
But chad b'chad,
It's called a
introduces
suffix.
a new isser. Because it's chad b'chad, it's aser for that
It's
reason.
aser.
Not because I know which one of the animals. Because b'chad b'chad, it's aser because it's chad b'chad. Always when I have a 50-50 situation, everything in the Taaruvot is aser.
It's also, but still it's called, it's still
But it's
called
not
a
aser
suffix.
because now I have identified the isser. It's aser because a 50-50
Because it's
Taaruvot asers
50-50.
everything.
Right, exactly.
It's a separate din.
Yeah, but but here you see how you have suffix beguf
Yes.
in the cow, the
Yes.
mother, and a suffix in the
I'm just saying,
taruvas.
you have a Taaruvos, but that
You do.
Taaruvos because it's chad is not even a suffix.
All right, you say that, yeah. But that's the cloud. I mean, however you look at it, it's still, you're right, it's 50-50. Yeah. I saw the Shem Yore Deah, who deals with a very complicated question, a complicated area called the gunas. You know about that?
Sure.
You understand what a gunas are, right?
Yeah.
You know, what didn't they do and try to release a woman? But it's not pashut. Release her, and they're having case. The husband says, "Hi, honey," after 20 years.
After 30 years, they found him in the neighboring village.
Or they
He
found
was
him,
married,
or
remarried, and had
whatever.
children.
Or whatever.
And he returned and joined his first wife again.
Or whatever, yeah.
They have a famous case from his
Yeah, Mamzerim, Chas v'shalom, she did remarry and have kids. It's a big... So you have to be very careful. Okay, so here's the question. So Rabbi Elyahu has a question about a man who fell into the river, into the water, and they didn't find him. And then they found a body on dry land. Okay, it could be him. Okay, what? And he said, oh, maybe we have a Sfeka here.
So apparently they couldn't identify.
Maybe he drowned. And even if you say he came out of the water, maybe he died. It's him.
So they couldn't identify the corpse.
There are halachas, by the way. If you learn the halachas about goodness, about this kind of situations, there are very, very clear halachas as to what constitutes a siman. And the problem with those simanim that are strong simanim is that after a number of days, depending on the weather, depending on where it is found, it disappears. You will not recognize a person after a number of days, depending if in open ground, indoors probably, depending on all the weather and the elements.
Right?
Yes. It's in the top part, yeah. Yeah, I mean, today you have fingerprints, but with fingerprints, it's not 100%, and after a while, too, you lose it. Yeah, DNA can help, yes, today we do have that tool. You do have what's called the decomposition, the progressive decomposition of the body, where after a while you cannot recognize the person. And even if there's a wallet there, I mean, that may not do it. So this, is this a Sfeka? Maybe it's him. Maybe he drowned. If he drowned, she's a widow. And even if he did not drown and he came out of the water, maybe it's him. So he says it's Meshem Echad. Why? Because it was similar to what you were saying before about the calf. We are concerned whether he's alive or dead. Did she have any? Did she have any at all? In other words, this male, maybe the nekeva came first. Maybe she had, it's the same idea. Right. In other words, right. So it says with this mace or with this individual, we don't know, of course, for sure. And what are we trying to determine? Is the original Baal alive or dead? I mean, either way, however you look at it, it's a Sfeka Mishem Echad. That's how he paskins. We are mesupek if he's dead or he's alive. In other words, the second suffix here does not really introduce anything different to make our suffix any better. Interesting, I thought. Chavas das, asks a good question by a Suffolk Drusa. By Suffolk Drusa, there's in Hilchas Treifas you find some very interesting examples, scenarios of wild animals entering the corral, right? Where the cattle are being kept. And as you know, ranchers do have problems in this country, whether it's with coyotes or mountain lions or with wolves. Bears, well,
Recently,
with bears, it all depends. They haven't really had bears going after cattle enclosed. Cattle, yeah. No, it's not a problem. A grizzly bear can definitely take down a moose, but they will not necessarily go in. But these other animals are able to climb and easily go in and go after that which is. So anyway, so the halacha does discuss these scenarios, even includes the possibility that lions entered, clawed an animal. And if they claw an animal, that's called a drusa. And of course, you can make a treif where it is clawed. And what's interesting about these examples of lions is once upon a time, believe it or not, there were lions in Eretz Yisrael. Up until the Crusades, there were still lions in that area of the world. And little by little, today the only area that you can find lions in Asia is a small area in northwest India, in a place called the Gir Forest of Gujarat state. Anyway, otherwise, wild animals have been killed because they were attacking human beings and attacking cattle. The Russians went on years ago, during Stalin's time, as they were building the railroad there, the Siberia Railroad or whatever, they actually wiped out a lot of tigers, because the Caspian tiger, as it was known, roamed that large area. Today, the only tigers left in Russia is the Siberian tiger, all the way in the Far East. A little bit in China, a little bit in Russia, and there's less and less of them. Overhunted. A lot of the Chinese use these animals too for various things that they cook with. So they have all kinds of things. So anyway, so these wild animals have been hunted, and you wonder why there's less and less of these animals. They don't have the bracha fish though. The only bracha Hashem gave was pru or vu with gularov bekerev haaretz, and the reason why the fish have a bracha is because the Japanese need to have sushi, right? So Hashem had to give them a bracha, so there should be fish. But other animals in the world do not have that bracha, and that is why animals become extinct. Every year, animals are becoming extinct. It's too sad, because, it's Hashem's creature. So you have certain animals that existed before that don't. Anyway, so getting back to what we're saying. So in Hilchas Treifas, you have animals attacking, or the possibility of an animal to attack, an animal that can inflict damage and cause a treifa. So the Chavas Das brings this example, and he asks a question about that halacha by a Suffolk Drusa, whether the animal did become drusa or not. In other words, if it was clawed or not. There's a suffix there, suffix al, suffix lo al. Who says the lion came in? Who says the wild animal came in? Possibly did not came in. And even if you say it did come in, suffix doras, suffix lo doras. Who says it clawed? Okay, you have reason to believe that it clawed. Now over there, we allow it. It's a Sfeka. Now, what's the problem over there? The problem over there. I mean, how do you know there's a problem? There's a problem in one scenario is because there was a claw embedded in the shoulder of the sheep.
So how could the animal?
So how is it possible that the claw got there?
Come in.
Right. It's possible because the animal at one time clawed the wall, and one of the claws got stuck in the wall. Uh-huh. And it says over there that the sheep or the cow rubbed itself against the wall. All right, I guess they knew that these things happen. Otherwise, they wouldn't have theorized that. Right. Now, by the way, you know what the claw is of a lion or a tiger? You've seen claws?
They're very, very sharp.
We're not talking about the paw. We're talking about the claw. And the claws are extremely sharp. And sometimes they're between 1.5 and 2 long. Lions and tigers have long claws and a bit longer.
They can release them, no?
Exactly, they're retractable. Most cats have what's called retractable claws. When they run, they don't. It's only to grab something and bring it down. So apparently, it is possible for a claw with enough pressure to get stuck in a wall, to lose it. It's not like, by the way, it's not like the teeth of a shark. You know what happens when a shark loses a new row grows. A new row comes in. Eventually they can replenish their teeth. Here, it would be very sad. A wild animal would lose one of its canine teeth or their claws because it relies on it. And guess what these animals do? What?
They regrow as long as there's to the body.
If there's still something left, maybe, yeah. But haven't you heard of animals that have been declawed? Yeah, they actually removed.
That's what we're talking about.
So I don't know exactly how much was removed over here, but at least for now, it declawed. An animal that does not have what it needs to hunt will hunt it's here for him. That's what happens sometimes. Sick animals that have lost their ability to hunt normally may attack human beings. This happens in India. So anyway, apparently it happens that an animal. So that was a Sfeka that was mentioned over there.
By the way, when you had a lot of problems.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Good point, yeah. So here we have a Sfeka. So the Chavis Das on that Sfeka of an animal, did he enter or did he not? Did he claw? And even if he did he claw? Who said he clawed? So it's all Shem Echad. So he explains that that's not a real Chisorim b'Shem Echad for a very interesting, and this will help us understand the next Klalim. Why isn't there a Chisorim of Shem Echad over here? We basically want to know, did it come in or did not it come in? Did it attack or not attack? It's the same idea. It's not really a separate kind of suffix. So he says, the reason, it may be b'Shem Echad, but the reason Shem Echad works, remember we had a few exceptions of when Shem Echad works, so the reason why over there it's okay, it's an acceptable Sfeka, is because you can't have the second suffix without having the first suffix. In other words, it's not, you have to.
On the contrary.
Yeah.
The second suffix precludes. If I have a suffix, if there's a possibility, it may have clawed, and the suffix includes both ways,
yeah,
that it must be present, and so on.
One more time, explain that again.
In order to have a suffix as to whether it clawed or not, it must be present inside.
Exactly,
so
yes.
It precludes the first suffix.
I guess I didn't understand the word you were saying by precludes.
Yeah, precludes. It's impossible for it not to have entered, which is my first suffix. Did it enter or not? It's impossible for it not to have entered if I allow for the possibility that it clawed.
Yes. Very good. Very good. Thank you for explaining that one. Basically, you've had to have determined if the lion or the animal entered or not. Otherwise, that is not a possibility.
You didn't have to enter the time.
Yeah.
The example that you gave on the wall. And
right. That's.
It could have been
some other time. Yes. Right.
That was to explain why.
That was the other suffix.
Why did it have a claw in its body? That would explain that part, and that would be the explanation for it didn't come in.
Yeah.
And claw.
If the lion would not enter at all, then you don't have a reusa here in the trephis. You don't really have a problem here. You have to have that situation. You have to make that assumption first in order to entertain the possibility that it was clawed.
It was there, but the timing.
Well, it wasn't there, meaning to say it wasn't there at the time that the animal acquired that claw.
Right. That's not whether they were there.
At
all. It must have been there at some point in time in order to leave the claw wherever they picked it up.
Yeah. Whereas the other stuff, if they enter, whether it was doyers or not, that's already a problem. That creates a problem. That's already what they call a reusa. That's a real suffix. But if I have to have the first situation to begin with, and I think that this is pretty much like another cloud that we'll be learning soon about Sfeka misapech. You cannot, it's not called Mishem Echad when you are relying on the suffix, the first suffix to be there. Otherwise, if you don't really...
You say the first suffix to be that the suffix should, but rather that the suffix should resolve to one, to its positive.
To its positive, yeah. You have to give that possibility. Yes.
In other words, if my suffix is was it there or not, then to be there means it was there.
Yes.
Rather than, not the suffix was there, but the animal, the lion was there.
Right.
Of all the cases we discussed, my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah. At least I think I understood it a little bit.
Basically, he explains a little bit more. He says, whenever you have a suffix in the reusa, was there a lion altogether to begin with, it would never be a problem of suffix mishem echad. In other words, maybe you don't have, or you do have a problem to begin with here. If you start with that possibility, then it's not a real problem of Shem Echad. In other words, even though it does appear as Shem Echad, it's a necessity, a condition that has to be. If it's not there, then you don't really have that. You don't have
the first suffix has to have been resolved in a positive way in order for the second suffix to be a suffix.
Yes, definitely. And we will see this soon again in various other examples. Okay, let's just go quickly to Klal Yud Gimel. Sfeka Mishapech. This is a very interesting one. The Shach says you don't say Sfeka unless it's Mishapech. The word Mishapech means that you can turn it around. You know, unless I can equally begin with my Sfekas from the other direction. Well, what's a Sfeka? I begin with a suffix. Is it this or that? And even if you say it's this, but maybe this is what happened.
It would mean in order for the second suffix, which case preclude?
No. Sfeka Misaka is where I should be able to start with any suffix I want and have the similar results.
Right.
They will sound alike. They will work alike.
Right.
It has to, otherwise it's not mishapech.
Exactly. Which case is it that's not mishapech? So that's what I was trying to.
Yeah, we'll see various examples where it's not mishapech, right? But you understand how it works. It's very simple. Mishapech means I don't only start with suffix number 1. I can just as easily start with suffix number 2 and have the same results. If I ask this, but even if it's not, but maybe it's this, and it will work smoothly, easily, without any problems. But sometimes it doesn't. And if it doesn't, it's not called a Sfeka HaMisapech. If you cannot treat or evaluate the situation equally from the two directions, then it's not Sfeka HaMisapech. This is also brought down to Tosis Yeshonim. There's a question there like about Sfeka.
Last night was Monday night.
So we have Sfeka HaMisapech. HaMishapech. Actually, when you learn Hilchos Sfeka, mentioned earlier, you don't have to know all the 36, the Shach, because the Shach has, in the 36 has many examples, but some of them are classic. You know, you will notice, you will see them being mentioned by the various Achronim. And they are what we just covered. Sfeka Mishem Echad, Sfeka Misapech is another one. So it's important to understand this one, how it works. It has to be equally analyzed from whichever direction you look at it. Over there, I think that the Tosis there mentions, why can't we make the following Sfeka? Remember by Pesach Pasuach, by the woman, there was doubts whether it's a Basula or not. Listen to this one, it's incredible. So, he's proposing. Safek, if the guy knows what he's talking about. If he's a if he's a bucky. Maybe he doesn't know what he's talking about. So after all, he just got married, right? Safek, if he's a bucky or not a bucky. And if you want to say that he was a bucky, Safek be'oines or Safek be'ratzin. Yeah, interesting. Yeah? You understand the question? This is the suffix here, right? Man is claiming that his wife is not a basula. Okay, the question is, should we believe him? So there is always the possibility of saying, but wait a minute, there's a Sfeka here. Oh, what's the Sfeka? We're talking about before. Even if she doesn't have her basulim, who says she lost it now, when she's married or engaged to him? A shtickle marriage. And even if you say it did happen when she was already married, maybe she was raped. She didn't do it voluntarily, right?
So that was the old Sfeka.
That was the old Sfeka that we had about the Gemara's case, the Sugya, right? So the Gemara says, there is a possibility you can believe him when he's a Kohen. He's Eshes Kohen. Eshes Kohen, you only have one suffix. The Oines and the Rotzain does not make a difference. It's only when it happened. Okay? He says, listen, she's Pesach Pasuach, the door is open. She's not a Basula.
So now he wants to say even by a Kohen. Maybe this Kohen doesn't know what he's about.
Okay, so now he's introducing like we say in Yiddish, a Zaitika question. In other words, an aside, another question. What about proposing the following Sfeka? Maybe he's a bucky, maybe he's not. Who says he knows what he's talking about? And even if you say that he knows what he's talking about, a bucky means he's an expert.
He's knowledgeable.
He's knowledgeable whether she's a basula or not. How does he know? What does he know? Yeah, I mean, he wasn't trained. He didn't. I mean, he wasn't married to others. Yes.
So then you get out of the Shem Echad problem. One is on him and one is on her.
Yeah, here we don't have a problem with the Shem Echad so much, right? But we have a different problem.
But the question is, if you're going to, is he a Bucky, is he not?
Yeah.
Can you say, most people are not in anything?
Yeah, that's what he wants to propose it. And what would happen? What's the Sfeka going to determine here? Right? That it could have been the Oinus. Safek, Bucky, Safek, and even if you say he's a Bucky, and he knows what he's talking about, could have been an Oinus. Right?
Yeah, that's
all right, that's what we're trying to say. Is this a good Sfeka? He says, no. This is not a Sfeka ha-mishapech. Why? Because what did we say? What was mishapech? Mishapech means you should be able to equally say it from the other direction. Okay.
Maybe
Safek Oines, Safek Beratzen.
And even if you say Beratzen, maybe he doesn't know what he's talking about.
You can't do that. Because once you say Beratzen, she's a surah. You see what I mean? Try it. Try it the other way. Start with that suffix.
Probably he doesn't know what he's talking about and it doesn't help.
Right. So remember, you see the point? If you start with the other suffix instead of the Bucky, if you start with the suffix of Oinus and Ratzon, you won't be able to go too far.
What if he's not
well, that's what we're trying to determine here. We don't know.
No, but
we don't know anything.
The mishapech means, how does the Sfeka work? First of all, I have a doubt. Let us assume that I resolve this doubt to the side of Isser. I have yet a second that again raises a doubt with respect to what I just resolved was an Isser. So, if I start off with maybe he's Baki or maybe he's not Baki, now resolving it to the side of Isser, he is Baki, but maybe it was Ba'oinus by her. So even if he is Baki, I have the again a doubt regarding the. Now, mishapech means I have to be able to start the other way around. So I'm going to start off with the suffix, maybe it was ba'oinus, maybe not ba'oinus. Maybe my starting point. I'm going to resolve it to the side of, it was not ba'oinus. So now I'm going to introduce the second suffix. And let us assume it was not ba'oinus, maybe he doesn't know what he's talking about. How does that help me? If it wasn't ba'oinus, whether he knows what he's talking about or not doesn't know what he's talking about, she's already aser. You understand? So the second suffix doesn't
help
raise an additional doubt.
So if it's a real mishapech, it should be able to work like that.
Right.
We should be able to equally start from the
Either
end,
side.
the second suffix, or from the first suffix. This one we can't. And that's why this is not a suffix, it's not a good Sfeka, because of this reason. Maybe let's just give one more example of this, and then we'll continue with the Sfeka misapech on Thursday, because we still have to cover a little bit more about it. This could happen in Shechita, an important detail in Shechita. You know, there's several things that render the Shechita an Avela. You know what the difference between an Avela and a Treifa is, right? An Avela is an animal that has become unfit for consumption as a result of bad Shechita or no Shechita at all. It died, it was shot. And she's metame, there's tumah to an Avela. A Treifa means the Shechita could have been done very well. But there's an internal problem that renders this animal unfit. You know, it's not kosher because of the lungs or whatever, right? That's a treifa, and there's no tumah, by the way. The shechita was done, there's no tumah. Okay? So there are various things that make the shechita an avela. If he doesn't do it right, that's right, you learn it, maybe we'll learn it in Hilchot Shechita. One of them is if the sakin is peguma. If the chalaf, right, has a peguma, has a, how do you call it in English?
Nick.
A nick, thank you. And that's what you'll see. Good shoichtem, checking it very often. You don't want to slaughter an animal and then find pegima. Wait a minute, was pegima before the shechita or after the shechita? Because this kind of defect causes what's called akira in the simanim. You're basically cutting, pulling, uprooting the simanim as opposed to just slicing through it. Okay? So in other words, it's not kosher. You can't do that. You can't use a saw.
It's an avela.
It's an avela. It has to be smooth. So you have to make sure that the sakin is... All right. Comes along the shoichet, ala shchita, and you know, they're pretty big, pretty long. And he does halacha and ayva, in both directions, usually about 3 times, depending on the size of the animal, right? And the animal, of course, is dead, the blood comes squirting out, the simanim were cut completely, no problem. Looks at the sakin, and he sees a pima, he sees shenif gam. Now the question is, well, wait a minute. I remember checking it. Did you check it right before this one? I'm almost sure I did. Okay, then what's the problem? You did. No, the problem is there's several places where this sakin could have become pogum, other than hitting it on the table. How does a sakin become pogum with time? Why do we have to check it? I'm not using it for furniture. I'm not using it to cut vegetables. It can become pogum because of the hide with time. It can become pogum because he went too far, and he hit the etzem hamafreket. He hit the backbone. If you chop the head off, it's straight. You can't, you have to cut the simanim and that's it. So it could have become pogum because it went as far as the etzem hamafreket. By the way, great, because at least when he was cutting, it was okay. It's only when it got to the bone that boom, it got a nick from hitting the bone. But as long as I didn't have that sakin pogum as it was cutting, I'm okay, I'm safe. The problem is I don't know. I don't know when it got the pgima. So what's the suffix here? Suffix shema b'mafrekes. Maybe it was b'mafrekes. It hit the bone. And if you want to say it was not nifgam b'mafrekes, maybe it was nifgam at the last point of as it's cutting the siman. What's called b'mi'ut basra. Mi'ut basra means the halacha is if you cut 3/4 of the simanim, 3/4, you're okay. The Basar they used to do sometimes. The kohen used to do part of the job and just you finish up, and they were pretty quick. As long as it was quick, it's okay. So here it became pogum at the end, the mi'ut basra, which is not me'akev. Not in the beginning.
By now it's already a kosher, edible creature.
Yeah. So in other words, maybe nifgam b'mafrekes, right? And even if it wasn't b'mafrekes, maybe it was nifgam b'mi'ut basra. Because if it's nifgam by the or, it's a problem, right? So we're trying to find a way out. There is a possibility it was in the mafrekes, and even if it was not the mafrekes, maybe it was at the end as he was cutting away the kone and the veshet, the food pipe and the windpipe. Right? And if it was at the end, then it would be okay. It's not a Sfeka hamishabach.
No.
So, Ilan, can you explain to us why?
Because if it was at the end, I'm saying now, maybe it wasn't the end. And even if it wasn't at the end, then maybe it was at the bone. So, how can it be at the bone after I'm already at the end?
No.
No.
One second. You said something else. Let's take it one step back. What are we trying to say? Two Sfekas, right?
Yeah.
Shema nifgam b'mi'ut basra. We're trying to do it the other way around, right?
Right.
And even if it was not b'mi'ut basra, but what? It was b'mi'ut kama.
Mi'ut kama?
In the beginning, as it was cutting the siman.
No. I thought by mafreket.
No. That's a second suffix.
I'm talking about the second.
No.
Oh, even if it was.
Remember, you have to start with the first suffix. What's the
Right.
first suffix? I'm starting from the first. Maybe it was b'mi'ut basra. And even if you want to tell me it wasn't b'mi'ut basra, it was a real mi'ut kama.
So here
It was in the beginning as he was cutting the severing.
So it's already in the middle.
Exactly. You can't get to the next step.
Yeah.
Remember
Doesn't help me, it's mafreket.
Remember the other case with the.
So why does it help me in the mafreket around?
So it's not a mishapech.
Yeah, I'm saying, but the first time around, maybe it wasn't the mafrekes. If it wasn't the mafrekes,
I wanted to say maybe.
How does the nick come out?
Yeah. Even if it was not the mafrekas, maybe it's a mi'ut basra.
But then my question is, if it's wouldn't that mean that it's while he's still cutting the
No, it would be okay. If we knew for sure it hit the mafrekas, it'd be okay.
That's what caused the blemish. But now
Yeah.
he's got a blemish and he's still cutting the siman.
No. He finished with the simanim. By the time you finish the simanim, then you get to the mafrekas. At the end, after you finish, boom, you go further. You go too far. You went too far.
But then why is it not mishap?
Because if you start with the mi'ut basra,
Yes. But that comes after the mafrekes, mi'ut basra.
no, you have the windpipe and the food pipe.
Yes.
As you're cutting through them, right? You can cut 3/4, you can cut the whole thing. After you're done with the whole thing, you can still continue. You get to the mafrekas, to the neck bone,
Yes.
right? So if you say, well, maybe it wasn't the mi'ut basra, which would be good because at least it was at the end.
Right.
I've already done most of the But so even if you say it wasn't the mi'ut basra, but what was it? It was the mi'ut kama.
Why the mi'ut kama? The mafrekes.
No, that's my second suffix.
Right.
Even if you say it was the mi'ut kama, maybe it hit the mafrekas. You can't say it anymore. See, the mafrekas is already a second suffix.
But am I trying to determine how the blemish? How
Occurred, yeah, but once I determined that it was miut kama, then it doesn't
But
help me.
why would I determine miut kama? I'm trying to
Because I'm trying to say, is it miut kama or is it miut basra or miut kama?
Oh no, I'm trying to say, was it the mafrekes or the
That's the second suffix. Mafrekes is the second suffix.
Yeah.
I have a suffix regarding the simonim. Where was it before?
Who caused the blemish?
I want when, not who.
Was it what caused the blemish? I'm trying to determine at which point in time did the
Exactly.
blemish occur.
So if
I have 2 points in time where it could have occurred without being a problem, either by the mafrex or by miut kama. Why do I have to pursue, even if it was during the before that?
You didn't get through the miut kama.
with the mafrekes, if you start with the mafrekes, you can say you're trying to find a heter.
Right.
Mafrekes, yes or no? Even if you would say it's not at the mafrekes, I still have a chance. I still have a chance it occurs somewhere else. Where? In a place where I'm safe. The miut basra.
And but now I'm turning it around. So I'm saying the miut basra.
Okay, now you have to analyze the miut, right?
Now, if it's not the miut
now,
basra,
did it occur in the miut basra? And even if you say it did not occur in the miut basra, but where did it?
By the mafrekas?
No.
It has to be somewhere before the miut.
Why before? Why before? Why before?
Because you're basically with the miut basra, you're saying if it's not the miut basra, then you're saying it's the miut kama.
Why?
Okay.
You're saying it's not the miut basra, and I still have the mafrekas.
Right.
It's a possibility. Might have occurred
Okay.
later.
Okay. That's also a possibility.
Right.
That's also you can also say that.
Right.
Okay.
So what's my problem?
Okay.
Maybe not.
What?
Maybe not.
Yeah, but not necessarily.
No.
Right.
That's because Sfeka. That's what always by Sfeka you'll have something in both. You don't have a certainty in either case.
Okay. Let's take your example.
Yes.
But you understood mine.
Well, I don't understand.
You understand mine that it's not a Sfeka misapech. Okay?
No. I don't understand why I have to go to the.
No. Your thing is you're continuing off from the example that I gave and you're switching it around completely. I'm giving you an example of Sfeka she'eino misapech. So I'm saying miut basra, if it's not, and you say it's miut kama.
Yeah, but why are you adding that? That's why.
Because I'm showing what a Sfeka she'eino misapech is. You cannot turn it around. In your example, which is acceptable.
But it's the same case.
It's acceptable.
Why?
They talk about it. Shema miut basra. And even if you say it's not miut basra, it happened to the mafrekes, it's all one suffix.
Why is it one suffix?
Okay? It's not the example that I'm giving Sfeka she'eino misapech. That's more of an example of it's all one suffix. In other words, it's the two of them, there's no chashizer. By the two examples, there's no chashizer. Shema miut basra. Great. What if it's not? And if not, well, maybe by the mafrekes.
That's exactly the exact inverse of what I said before. I said maybe it's the mafrekes. If it's not the mafrekes, maybe it was the miut basra. So now I'm turning it the other way around.
Yeah.
Maybe
it's the miut basra. If not, maybe it's the mafrekes.
Where's the suffix in your example?
Yeah.
Same
For
thing.
it, for it, you need to have ability.
In that case, it's either miut basra or etzem. It doesn't make a difference. In other words, there's no suffix really. It's not a problem.
But it's the exact same mafrekes, the first and then miut basra.
But the suffix has to get ability.
Yeah.
Well, in either case.
Yeah, you're right.
Regardless of
You're
whether
right.
I say mafrekes first and
Ilan, you're right.
miut basra.
I just gave it as an additional example where you can see how it would not be misapech if you would treat it that way. In other words, yes or no in the mafrekes. And if you say, even if you say no, maybe in the miut basra. You cannot have a true mishapech if you started off with miut basra.
If you
analyze as a possibility.
You'll never have
Yeah, exactly. Because miut basra, yes. And even if you say no, it was miut kama, maybe it was the mafrekes. You can't do that because once you say it's miut kama, it's an avela.
Well, if you say if you say mafrekes, no. And even if you say miut basra, maybe it's miut kama. So you'll have the same thing. As soon as you include.
Yeah, you're right. But in the first case, we wanted to find a leniency. So I chose mafrekes, and then I chose miut basra.
I'm just saying, the moment you include as a third possibility of where it might have occurred between the two, the other situation.
Yeah. You're right. It is possible to look at it both ways, but I use it as an example of Sfeka she'eino misapech because you can look at it that way, depending on how you analyze it. But also you can see it that it's all one suffix. It's all. It doesn't really make a difference.
But if it's all one suffix, it's all one suffix both times.
Yes, both. You can do that. You're right, which it doesn't really help you because it's
but then
not.
The first one wouldn't be a real suffix anyway. You don't need to have a mitchaper on it. If you say it's one suffix,
Yeah.
then if you start with the mafrekas, you'd also have only one side.
Yeah. In other words, there's no chashash. Well, it depends. In one way, there's no chashash isur at all. There's no chashash isur at all. If you say miyad basra and you say mafrekas, there's no.
And those you can say they're interchangeable. If you say those two, they're interchangeable.
Right, but you can't. That's what I'm saying. You can't really say they're completely interchangeable because if you tried the suffix of miyad basra by itself, is it yes or no? Miyad basra knows when. What is it? It could be miyad kama, which would mean it's possibly treif. We're trying to see the tzad of the chumrah too. And what would the tzad of the chumrah miyad basra? Maybe miyad kama. Then you can't say mafrekas.
But when you look at a suffix and you want to,
by mafrekas you can start both ways. Mafrekas, yes or no. If you say yes, great. If you say no, then where else could it have occurred? I would say, well, it could have occurred maybe in miyad basra.
So listen to how you just formulate.
Because I want to make.
Listen to just how you formulate.
Right.
And if it's not the mafrekas, where else could it have occurred?
Right.
It could have occurred.
Right.
So if I'm going to turn this exact statement that you made around, I'll have to also say, where else could it have occurred?
Right.
Then I'm in the same formula.
Yes.
So I'm starting with the miyas basra. I'm saying, if not miyas basra, where else could it have occurred?
Right.
And I could say by the mafrekas.
You're right.
So
but for a different reason, I wouldn't be able to say it. I was giving an example of both. It's not mishapech. In case you wanted to restart the suffix from another angle, from another suffix, the suffix about the simanim, you would not be able to achieve it.
The difference between the two cases postulated is that one time you choose to say, where else could it have occurred?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Whereas the other time you choose to say, and if it occurred in the forbidden part.
Right.
Rather than where else could it have occurred.
The two are somewhat different. Nonetheless, in neither of the two cases would it be allowed. Okay?
But if the case of asking where else could it have occurred and answering the mafrekas, if that would also not allow it, then raising the question about the mafrekas and saying then in the remaining flesh should just as much not work.
Yeah. Neither of them works for different reasons. One is it's not a mishapech, and in your case, well, even if it's not a mafrekas, maybe it was miyad basra, even if, you can say the other way around. Maybe it was not miyad basra, but it wasn't a mafrekas. You didn't really accomplish anything.
But then if you said in the mafrekas, it was the miyad basra, you accomplished just as much.
Yeah. In neither of them is there a chash for an isser.
But I'm just saying.
So in neither of those two cases,
but that weakness would then be in the first way of saying it as well. If it's not in the mafrekas, then there's also no hashash.
There's only two possible areas: mafrekas or the simanim, or the or really. So you're saying it's not mafrekas; it's at the simanim, but the simanim it could be at the end of the simanim.
If you're saying it's not at the end of the simanim, then maybe it's a mafrekas.
Right.
It's exactly the same thing.
Yeah, but
if one doesn't work, the other doesn't.
Yeah, but if I only introduce two possible heterim without a possible isser, then what am I doing?
Then I have to introduce the possible isser in the first case as well. So I have to say, if it's not the mafrekas, maybe it was in the isser part. I have to prove that. Where else could it have been?
There isn't. There isn't.
What is it?
By mafrekas, there isn't a possibility of an isser part. It's mutter.
No, but there is an isser part.
And even if you say it didn't happen there, maybe it happened in an isser part of the animal.
Right.
Right.
So
again, I only.
So so now it's already forbidden, just like by the basar.
Yeah, but not necessarily forbidden because maybe it was at the edge.
So when you reverse it, you get exactly the same answer again. Maybe it's not forbidden because it was maybe the mafrekas.
One is an example, depending on how you formulate it. One is an example of sfeka sheinu misapech, and one is simply not even a sfeka, the way you formulate it. Because even if it's not even if it wasn't at the end of the simon, it actually occurred later at the mafrekas. It's not going to be a problem. You don't have the suffix. You don't have the possibility of ever becoming usher.
It seems that somehow the fact that
it's not right to think that way. That's not a suffix. Yeah.
You're saying that when you how do you call the basar that's permitted?
Yeah.
The basar that's permitted. How do you call that?
The miyut basra.
The miyut basra.
Right.
So you're saying if I started the mafrekas, which comes later, and if that does not apply, then I go backwards to miyut basra.
Yeah. We'll explain it to Mr. Shem next time. We'll get a little bit more.